Hello Cinnamon Bun, welcome to another journal video. In this one I am going to be migrating into my next journal and setting up for 2022 and setting up my monthly as well. So it's a nice chonky one. As you'll see, I don't like to get particularly flowery or elaborate with my journal migrations or like yearly setups. I like to keep it really simple. I have found that if I just don't use a lot of collections really in my journals at all. Really, all of mine are 99% monthly logs and daily logs, and there might be a couple wee collections here and there as they arise, but I really don't like setting up a lot of elaborate stuff in advance. Because anything more long-term like that would be the type of information I put in a collection, I put it in Notion. So it keeps my journal pretty streamlined. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing today. I hope that you have a nice drink and you're comfy and you're ready to get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is migrate and archive my current journal, which was for the second half of 2021. It just so happens that I literally just finished my journal in time for the setup anyway, so I had to switch over. There was actually a few daily logs that I had to do just on like scrap paper to carry me over, but in general it seems like my journals last about 6 months pretty neatly, so that's nice. But yeah, so I'm just going to go through and make sure that I've indexed everything, the few collections that I do have, to make sure that they're all indexed. And what I'm actually doing, in case I want to refer to those collections again, even though I won't be carrying this old journal around anymore, is I am making a copy of that index on an index card and going to keep that in my folio, so that if I am like, oh, I know I've got a journal entry about that somewhere, and I can't find it in my current journal, I can see if it's in the old one. I'm actually thinking maybe in the long term about digitizing those collections, like when I archive a journal, like transferring any collections that might be useful to refer to again into Notion, so that I'm not having to refer to old journals again. But I don't know, maybe that's something I'll do in the future. And yeah, as you can see, I've blocked out this stuff of me like actually going through and migrating stuff, because my daily logs are very personal. And most of my journal is daily logs, so I hope you understand. But yeah, really my migrating and archiving process is very simple. I just flip through every single page and have a quick look to see if there's anything I want to save or transfer somewhere else, or anything that I'm going to need once this journal is retired. And then I just stick a sticker on the front and on the spine, labeling it for what period it covers, and then I stick it on my shelf along next to all of my other ones. I think this was my 10th bullet journal, you guys. 10. How wild is that? 10. What? And I'm doing a super simple, super not very aesthetic cover page for 2022. To be honest, this is mainly so that I can remember that that's the year this journal is for in future, because I don't write the year anywhere else, like in my monthlies and dailies and all of that. But I've also realised that I never look at this page again, basically, like in my journal. So there's really no point in me like putting a bunch of effort into making it look cute and stuff, because I just never look at it again. But it's helpful to see, to just have a note that this is the year this journal is for. Okay, so let's get into the setup. Here's something that I am trying a little bit differently, actually. It's still pretty simple. Usually, a bullet journal, the kind of one of the basic building blocks of a traditional bullet journal is the future log. And that will have, that's basically your big picture, like year at a glance kind of calendar. And usually people do it for the entire year, and so they'll have, different sections for all the months. Sometimes people write out the entire calendars. I don't do that because I just refer to a digital calendar. I had gotten into the habit, I used to do for the full year, but then I realised that all of my journals were really only lasting 6 months, and so it only made sense to make future logs for the next 6 months. But I've also realised that I don't really use those spreads a lot either as well. Certainly not when I use a digital calendar for basically the same function as a future log. And over the years, I've experimented with like different levels of like long-term planning, right? I used to do this whole elaborate like planning for the year business system process thing for a few years. But honestly, in the last few years, I'm leaning more and more towards short-term planning. I think especially with COVID, everything changes so fast and is so up in the air a lot of the time, or it has been for the last 2 years. It really feels pointless to try and plan anything more than like 3 months in advance for me. So that is a season, right? 3 months is a season or a quarter. And so what I am trying is I'm going to do a kind of seasonal log instead of a future log. So it'll be just for this season for the next 3 months. So for winter, that is December, January and February. And I will do at some point, maybe not for winter, maybe I'll start implementing this for spring. But I will think about what I want to do and what I want to focus on for this season. And then have a place to write that down, and then have a place to kind of review it as well. And then obviously my monthlies and dailies will continue. And then when spring comes around, I'll do another of these like in the middle of the journal, wherever it falls, instead of having it all up front. So basically planning at the most long-term planning on a seasonal basis, like a quarterly basis, but just having those be rolling spreads as well. That's what I'm thinking of doing. So I'm not entirely clear on what that's going to look like yet. I just wanted to like set aside a space for it in this journal. But I'm overhauling a lot of systems and planning processes in my business and stuff as well. So I think this is going to be something I iterate on over time. But my rough kind of idea for this is that page on the left that says winter can be a space for me to write down goals, intentions, focus, like whatever I'm thinking of doing for the season. And then on the right hand page, I have the actual breakdown of the 3 months and the weeks in those, what phase I'm in with the academy with those. And I'm thinking about for each column, like writing, here's what actually, like a little summary of here's what actually happened that month as a kind of bookend sort of review process of it. And that means that by the time I get to the end of the 3 months, I'll have like a summary of what my last 3 months were like. And so I can kind of compare that to what I wanted to do. So using that same kind of structure of like planning and then reviewing like as 2 bookends for like creating delineated chunks of time. But it's still very amorphous at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, now I am moving on to creating my monthly log, which will be for early winter. So that will span December and January, or a bit of both, half of both. But yeah, I just wanted, just to come back to like the season log thing. Like I say, I'm not really implementing this fully yet because I'm still figuring it out, but I thought I would set aside space for it. To be honest, since I did this setup, in the span between doing this setup and then recording this voiceover, things have changed fairly. They've just changed in terms of the COVID situation here in Scotland. We're basically at the tipping point of another wave, or our first wave of the Omicron variant. It's looking not great, and a lot of us are expecting. Some restrictions have already come back into place after a period of relative normality, or relatively few restrictions. And it's not looking great. So to be honest, I'm now kind of looking at winter, like I'm looking at this upcoming next few months and thinking like, main focus, just keep things ticking over and survive another wave. Figure out how to do that in a way that doesn't break me. I'm in a much different position now than I was the last time we were in a lockdown. I don't know if there is going to be a lockdown, but there might be. So just kind of focusing on getting me and the people I love through winter, I think, is going to be the main focus. No high and mighty, lofty goals other than that, to be honest. And as you can see, somewhat on point for my first winter setup, it's suddenly gotten very dark in this setup. So I did a little bit more this evening, but eventually I just decided to pack it up and then try again the next day, which was thankfully brighter. Alright, shall we catch up a little bit while I'm here? So, what's been going on? Well, not a whole lot. Obviously, December is a bit of a short work month, and it's even shorter because I planned really late. So, just been trying not to overload myself with too many plans and goals and tasks. The main focus was sending my tax records to my accountant, which I've been meaning to do for months. And so I finally did that. Woohoo! And just like backing up my video files. So kind of like boring admin stuff, to be honest, has been the focus, work-wise. And other than that, just making videos. You may have seen my camera basics vlog, which came out recently. I had such a good time making that, even though it took ages to edit. So if you haven't seen that, please go watch it, because it's good, and I think you might like it. So I'll be working on that. I have another video project on the go that's going to be a bit more long-term and slow, and I'm already impatient, so we'll see how that goes. Me and Pete just went to see Spider-Man No Way Home yesterday, and oh my god, you guys, it was so good. It was so good. It actually was better than I was expecting, and I am a very fussy Spider-Man aficionado, like the original Spider-Man movies by Sam Raimi with Tobey Maguire are some of my favorite movies of all time. They were very formative for me, and got me into reading the comics when I was a teenager and stuff. So I'm a big Spider-Man nerd, and I do like the MCU ones, the Tom Holland ones, but I just find them to be quite, like, I enjoy them, but I find them to be quite lightweight and not very meaty theme-wise, whereas something I think really that made the original Sam Raimi ones resonate so hard was that they're actually pretty tragic structurally. So No Way Home, I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously, but it was great. It really surprised me in a lot of ways, and we had such a good time, and I think I might go see it again, actually. So, yeah. Otherwise, I think the last I want to tell you about another creative project that I'm working on, but I will do that a little bit later. The other thing that I've got going on is that I am playing Stillfleet, which you might have heard me talk about in my Space Hamster vlog a while back, but this is a game that I'm playing and not running. And it's just very exciting because we're coming up to the end of what has been a campaign that is kind of has it been like over a year? It's bonkers, it's wild. We play like once a month and it's all online. And my character is called Rala, and she is like a 5-foot tall salamander person. She's a party animal, she wears a fedora, she's an engineer, she opens stargates essentially, and is just chaos incarnate. And we're coming up for the end of this campaign, and it's bonkers because I made an offhand joke early in the campaign. You know, we're being introduced to these like medieval-ish natives to this planet we're visiting for this quest, and they were talking about great tech, like basically technological wizards in another area of the world, and I got very frustrated with the fact that they didn't understand that we were from another planet, and so eventually I introduced myself as the Great Wizard Rala, and was like, I am one of these great wizards that you've heard of, like of legend, just to take the piss, really. And now we've come to the end of the campaign, and my character's been faced with the choice of going back to the turning in the assignment and getting paid, or basically being able to save this planet by ascending using this like crazy nanite technology computer thing to actually become essentially the Great Wizard, which is just bonkers and very fun, and that's what I'm going to be playing tonight. So we're going to get that conclusion, and it's going to be really fun. Yeah, that's kind of what's been going on, really. Okay, just in case this is your first like bullet journal video of mine and you're wondering what the hell I'm setting up right now, here's a quick summary of what these 4 columns are in my monthly log or my monthly spread. So the one that I'm doing that says my month, that is basically just a calendar. I do not use it to plan future events. I use it as a backtracking, retroactive kind of calendar. So every few days or every week or longer, depending on when I get around to it, I will flip back through my month, my day. Oh my God, words. I'll flip back through my daily logs and then draw a couple of symbols which signify different life domains, and write a couple of words to note what the biggest thing that was going on that day was. So I get this kind of like bird's eye view of what my month was like at the end of the month. The column next to that in the middle, lunar list, is basically a cycle tracking / cycle to-do list. So I have my cycle, like day one of my cycle lined up with the correct day on the calendar, so they're in sync, and I have a rough kind of map of how many days the cycle will be, and I use that space for my cyclical to-do list, because as I move through the different phases of my cycle, I like to make sure that I'm taking advantage of that phase, and getting certain things done to prep for the next one. So that's the middle column. And then on the right hand side, the third column, I have my to-do list for the month, my task list. You'll sometimes see it called quests or projects and quests. And it's a task list. I try to basically come up with a finite list of tasks that is actually manageable for me to complete in that month. And these are divided by different domains, different what I call like life domains, which is just basically different categories for areas of my life. They are according to the constellation system, which is something I created, and they are Divici for money, Genero for creativity, Socialis for relationships and social life, Domum for home and domesticity, Corporalis for body and health, and then there's one more, what is it? Spiritus for spirituality and mental health. And if you're interested in the constellation system, I actually did a big live stream about it on my Patreon that is recorded and up there for you to watch if you want to hear in more detail like what the hell that constellation system is and how it works. Finally, on the flip side of that my month column on that Dutch door, I just have a space for my intention of the month or my focus for the month. So I like to take a little time to do some divination, reflect, think about what I want to focus on for the next month, and this is where I write that. So obviously, like, projects and quests also has like things that I want to get done for the month in more granular detail. The focus of the month tends to be more like what's a kind of approach that I want to take, what's the kind of mindset I want to take to things, like what's maybe like a spiritual theme that I'm thinking about that month, or a message from a guide for that month, or sometimes I'll even pull a tarot card as a kind of theme for the month, and so I just want somewhere where I can see what that is to then reflect on it at the end as well. My head hurts. I've got a bit of brain fog. So narrowing this down is feeling a little bit overwhelming right now. So I'm gonna take a minute. I'm gonna heat up my tea. I'm gonna take some painkillers. I'm gonna grab my hot water bottle and then come back to this. Okay, so I also just wanted to chat a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes creatively in terms of what I'm working on in creative projects and writing and stuff. So beyond the usual videos and stuff, I am working on something I'm calling Project Tenera or Tenera. I haven't exactly decided how I want to pronounce it. You might have heard me speak already about how I am finding or I'm realizing that I really need to keep creative projects to myself for a while, until they're mostly done, if not until they're completely done. Because when I talk about things or I announce them online, I find it really, really difficult to actually finish them. And that certainly happened with a few novels and stuff. So this is something that I'm working on, Project Tenera, and it's been really cool. I've really loved working on it. But I am also a little bit conflicted about it because, like I say, I want to share what I'm working on. And I especially feel like people expect writing content from me because I used to do quite a lot of that. But I also want to kind of shield this project and protect it from the eyes of the outside, from expectations, from pressure, so that I can actually finish it, because I'm really tired of not finishing things. So that's like a bit of a conflict. For the most part, I think I've been fairly good at keeping it to myself, and that's why I've created this kind of like code name for it, which is kind of fun as well. But yeah, I don't know, especially being a creative on YouTube is strange because I certainly do feel this pressure sometimes, not just to be creating, right? To be working on something or to be writing something, but to be visibly creating. Otherwise, it feels like I'm not really a creative. So I do worry sometimes about, just showing like my journal setups and not really showing, what the big important stuff is that I'm working on, because in some senses it does seem, I worry that it makes it seem like I'm not doing anything at all, and God forbid I should be perceived as not being constantly creative. But at the same time, like I say, I'm realizing more and more that I need that privacy with a project while I'm working on it to actually get me to the finish line. And this is something I discovered with The Modern Leper as well, is that like that was such a huge part of the motivation for actually finishing a really quite ambitious project was, well, I don't want to talk about this in case it doesn't happen, in case it doesn't work out, in case I never get to release it. I didn't want to talk about it in advance and then, let people down or, just have it fall apart and not go anywhere. And I think that was actually a really good way for me to create, because it was really motivating. And so I'm trying to kind of take that same approach with this. But it's hard sometimes, when you're working on something kind of long term, and you're like, I just want to show you what I've been working on because I'm excited about it, Anyway, so yeah, that's going on in the background. Project Tenera. It involves words somehow. But I'm not going to get more specific because, like I say, I think it needs the space and privacy to evolve before I show it to you. So yeah, that's also been happening in the background. yeah, and you know what's wild as well is that I often choose like a tarot card for the month, but this month, when I was doing my augury divination kind of reflection, I decided to draw a card each for all of my guides, my big three, as I call them. And you know what's bonkers is that I did a Lenormand draw for one of them, and then I did tarot for the other two separate decks, and I pulled the Justice card from both tarot decks, from two different guides. I got Justice in the same reading. How bonkers is that? So I decided to pick out the Justice card from my Golden Thread deck, which is my kind of main one, and that's going to be my card for the month. And I'm just going to keep it in my folio for the month. And those are the two Justice cards that I pulled. Just wild. And that's my setup. Thanks for coming along. Couple wee things you should know. First of all, like I said, that Camera Basics vlog is out now, and I loved making it, and it also features Pete, and he is a delight. And it also features me figuring out some things creatively as well. So check that out if you haven't already. And for those of you who are writers, storytellers, people who want to write or tell fiction stories, my Story Magic Academy, if all goes according to plan, will be reopening in March, just to let you know. And then also, I have been trying out a new weekly setup in my journal, and so I decided to film the process of me setting that up, and I've decided to make it a little exclusive video for my patrons to say thank you for supporting me and supporting my work. Thanks so much, patrons. So if you also would like to get an extra exclusive video, you can become a patron of mine for as little as $2 a month. And if you become a patron, you also get access to my monthly live streams, including the recordings of every single live stream I've ever done on there. So you've got a nice backlog to get through as well. And they have fun topics like the constellation system, how to do a mental inventory. I did one recently, a big deep dive on my witchy guides and spirits and deities that I work with. So we've had a lot of fun chats in those, and you can get access to all of them if you join me on Patreon. Anyway, that's it. Those are all your calls to action. I hope that's satisfied you. And I hope that if you're having a holiday season, that it's a good one. And I hope you stay safe. I hope you're taking care of yourself. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.